What did medieval people do all day before clocks existed? You open your eyes in total darkness. The fire in the hearth has burned down to embers. The room is freezing, and you have no idea what time it is. Have you been asleep for 3 hours? 9? There's no number to check. No clock on the wall, no phone glowing on the table, nothing at all. Just the dark and you, lying there, trying to guess how much of the night has slipped away. Now really sit with that for a second. How did a person get through an entire day like this? Waking, working, eating, meeting people, going to church, all of it, without ever, at any moment, knowing what time it was the way you know it right now. How did an entire world function without a clock? And the answer isn't they lived in chaos. It's the opposite. They had a whole system for tracking time, a system that was made of sound, of sunlight, even of the human body. It's just that this time was elastic. And once you understand how it worked, your own clock is never going to look quite so obvious again. Let's go back to that scene in the dark for a moment, because it reveals something we never stop to think about. In the medieval world, once the sun went down, nobody, and I mean nobody, knew what time it was with any precision. Historians describe exactly this. You'd wake up on a winter night with no way of telling whether you'd slept 3 hours or 9. The night was a black hole with no markings on it at all. And that wasn't even the strangest part. The strangest part is that even during the day, there was no number for the hour the way you'd imagine. A medieval traveler could leave one town in the morning, walk all day, arrive at their destination after dark, and still hear the town's bells ringing out the first hour, because every place counted time its own way, and nobody was synchronized with anybody else. Think about how wild that is. Today, your clock here and a clock on the other side of the planet tick the exact same second. In that world, the hour in your village might simply not match the hour in the village next door. Time wasn't one single thing shared by everyone. It was local, loose, almost personal. So if it wasn't a number organizing these people's days, what was it? The answer came from above, way up high, from a tower, and it was loud. You're probably picturing them just looking up at the sun. And they did. But here's the first twist. In practice, the thing that actually ran the day wasn't the sun in the sky. It was the church bell. It worked like this. The church divided the day into fixed moments of prayer, the so-called canonical hours, each with its own name: matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, and compline. And at each of these moments, the bells in the tower rang out. It wasn't a chime every hour like we'd assume. The bells sounded 7 or 8 times across the whole day, and that's what told everyone where in the day they were. You woke up to a bell, you ate near a bell, you stopped working at a bell. The entire day was punctuated by that sound coming down from the tower. And the beautiful detail is how far that sound traveled. In the near total silence of that world, no engines, no machines, no traffic, a bell could be heard for miles. You'd be out in the middle of a field, bent over the soil, and time would literally reach you through the air, drifting across the landscape. But hold on, because here's where it gets funny. The bells didn't agree with each other. Every church, every monastery calculated its own hours in its own way. In a big city like Paris or London, you could hear bells from different religious communities ringing minutes apart, scattered all across the city. And the most surprising thing, nobody cared. Nobody was late for a meeting. Time wasn't yet that exact, measured out thing that steals your sleep. But if you think an hour was always just an hour, hold on, because this next part rewrites everything you just heard. Here's one of the hardest things to accept about medieval time, and I want you to read this slowly. An hour didn't have a fixed length. A summer hour was literally longer than a winter hour. That's not a figure of speech. That's how it actually was. Why? Because they divided the time between sunrise and sunset into 12 equal parts, always 12, all year round. Sunrise was the start of the first hour, midday was the end of the 6th, and sunset closed out the 12th. The problem is that the day isn't always the same length. In summer, with the sun spending far more time in the sky, you took that huge stretch and split it into 12, so each hour got stretched, long. In winter, with the day tiny, you split a small stretch into 12, and each hour shrank. Historians call these unequal hours or seasonal hours. Let me translate the size of this madness into your world. Imagine if your lunch hour in December lasted just 40 minutes of your clock, and in July, that same 1 hour lasted 80. Time breathed along with the seasons. It swelled, and it shrank with the light. And if time was this elastic, slippery thing, an obvious question shows up. How on earth did anyone measure it? What devices did human beings invent to grab hold of something that wouldn't even hold still? The answer involves sun, water, fire, and a trick that today would sound like a joke. The simplest instruments you can probably picture. There was the sundial, which measured the hours by the shadow it cast. Great on a clear day, useless on a cloudy afternoon or at night. There was the water clock, the clepsydra, which marked time by liquid dripping from one container into another. Used in monasteries and institutions, but it froze in winter. There was also the hourglass, good for measuring short intervals. Each of these devices had a flaw, so it was common to use more than one at the same time, hoping that together they'd land somewhere near the truth. But this is where I need you sitting down, because there's a real case that sounds made up. At a medieval university in Paris, it was recorded that an election would last exactly as long as it took a candle to burn. That's right. The official deadline for the vote wasn't 2 hours. It was until the candle runs out. They lit the candle, and when the flame reached the end, the election was over. The length of a serious institutional decision measured by melting wax. And the detail that makes it even better. The candle was described with obsessive precision. The weight of the wax, the height, divided into marked sections. They turned a piece of fire into an official stopwatch. And when there wasn't even a candle on hand, what was left was maybe the most incredible instrument of all, the human body. In many small communities, the job of knowing the time was handed to one specific person, a keeper of time with a well-trained internal clock who could feel from routine and from the sky when it was time to sound the signal. People who became clocks. And this entire system, sun, water, fire, people, existed to organize one thing, the engine of almost everyone's life back then: work. And their work followed a rule that today would sound absurd. The rule was simple and brutal. You worked while there was light, from sunrise to sunset. Period. And since the day changed size with the season, your working hours changed too. There's an incredible document for this. The Masons' Ordinances of 1370, which recorded the working hours of English Masons. In winter, they worked from daybreak until dark. In summer, from sunrise to half an hour before sunset. When someone ran the numbers on those records, the result was revealing. A Mason worked on average around 9 hours a day in winter and over 12 hours a day in summer. Notice how crazy that is. The same worker in the same trade. had drastically different days just because of which season was happening outside. Even the pay followed along. You earned more in summer, when the day gave more light, and less in winter. The sun, once again, was the real boss. Now, before you picture a life of nothing but suffering, here comes the part almost nobody mentions. That same world had a staggering number of days with no work at all. On top of Sundays, the church calendar was packed with religious feasts where you weren't supposed to work. Weddings, wakes, and births could turn into days of celebration. A troupe of traveling performers rolled into town and people already counted on time off to watch. In certain high-wage stretches of 14th century England, there are estimates that some people worked relatively few days in the year. Long days, but many days of rest, almost the inverse of our logic of short days and a year spent almost entirely working. Notice what's happening here. Every single thing we uncover points in the same direction, an idea of time completely different from yours. And that's exactly what closes the loop on what you felt way back at the start in the dark. Remember that feeling of waking up in the dark with no idea of the time? Yeah, that wasn't a flaw in their system. It was the essence of it. Because to a medieval person, time wasn't something you owned, counted, or spent. It was something you lived. You didn't have 3 free hours. You had the light between 2 ringing bells. And that changes the whole meaning of the question that opened this video. What did people do all day without a clock? We asked that assuming something was missing for them. But nothing was missing. They had the sun to tell them where the day was, the bell to mark the moments, the body to feel the rhythm, and the seasons to tell them what to do. It was a time you felt, not a time you numbered. You didn't check the time. You lived inside it. There's even a trace of this hiding in your mouth every single day, and you've never noticed. When the first mechanical clocks started to appear, they gave a different time than the sun did. So people ended up with 2 ways of talking about time: solar time, from the sky, and clock time. To tell them apart, they'd say something happened of the clock. Over time, that shrank into a little word you still use today without thinking: a clock. But here's where the darkest thread of this whole story shows up. Because so far, we've only talked about the day. And the day, at least, had the sun and the bell. The night had nothing. And what happened in that black hole of ours was maybe the most surprising part of all. Here's the discovery that gives you chills. A historian named Roger Akirch spent years digging through diaries, medical texts, letters, and works of literature, and kept finding, over and over, a strange phrase nobody uses anymore: first sleep. And right after it, second sleep. It took him a while to understand what it meant. When he did, it changed the way we picture the night in the past. The idea is this: before artificial light, a lot of people didn't sleep their 8 hours all in one go. They slept in 2 shifts. You'd go to bed soon after dark, sleep for a few hours. That was the first sleep. And around midnight, you'd simply wake up. And you'd stay awake, on purpose, for an hour or 2, in the middle of the night. Then you'd drift back into your second sleep, until the sun came up. And what did people do in that strange hour, in the dead of night, between one sleep and the next? Everything. They prayed. They talked. They reflected on the dreams they just had. They tended the fire, did small chores, sometimes visited a neighbor. There was a whole slice of life happening at an hour when, for you, there's only the silence of the bedroom and maybe the blue glow of a screen. Imagine waking up at 2 in the morning, not in a panic, thinking you've got insomnia. but because that's simply how the night works. And this is your quiet little window in the day. It's worth being honest here. Not all historians agree that this was a universal rule. Some think the phrase might mean other things, or that the interval was quite short. It's a powerful theory, but it's still debated. Still, it points to the same truth that's been building this entire video. Their time, from waking to lying down, and even within sleep, had a shape that to us is almost unrecognizable. And it was exactly that whole shape, the bell, the elastic hours, the sun ruling the workday, the night split in two, that was about to be destroyed by a single machine. Around the year 1300, something appeared in Europe that would take this entire world apart: the mechanical clock. The first literary reference to a clock capable of striking the hours comes from Dante in the Divine Comedy around 1319. And these early clocks were very different from what you'd imagine. Many had no face, no hand at all. They were just a giant mechanism of metal inside a tower, built to do one thing: strike a bell at the right moment. At first, they were so crude that they were off by several minutes a day, sometimes needing to be reset by looking at the sun or the stars. But the technology advanced fast. In 1335, they built a clock in Milan that struck its own bell on its own, with no one pulling a rope. In the second half of the 14th century, more than 500 of these tower clocks were installed all across Europe, in churches, cathedrals, and town halls. One of the oldest that still survives, in Salisbury Cathedral in England, dates to around 1386. And to this day, it has no face, built only to strike the hours. And here's the silent turning point that changed humanity. Unlike the sun, the machine didn't care about the season. It chopped the day into 24 exactly equal slices, all year round. The elastic hours, the ones that stretched in summer and shrank in winter, simply died. From that point on, an hour became an hour, always for everyone. Time stopped breathing. The ones who embraced this most were a new and hungry class, the merchants. Because with the clock, time became something you could measure, divide, charge for, and, in the end, sell. Cities began using the tower bells to mark the start of work, the curfew, the opening of the market. Bit by bit, the clock came down from the church tower and entered everyone's life. Time was ceasing to belong to God and the sun, and starting to belong to man and money. And this is where that question from the beginning, what these people did all day without a clock, finally finds its answer. But the answer might be the opposite of what you expected to hear. So, what did medieval people do all day without a clock? They did exactly what you do. They woke up, worked, ate, met people, rested. The difference is that none of it was guided by a number. It was guided by the sun climbing, by the bell sounding in the tower, by the body feeling the hour, by the season telling them what to plant and when to stop. They weren't lost in time. They were immersed in it in a way we today can barely imagine. And here's the part that might sting a little. We tend to look at this world without clocks with pity, as if something were missing for these people. But look closer. They had a time that stretched in summer, that shrank in winter, that respected the light and the dark, that opened a quiet window in the middle of the night, just to exist. The clock didn't give them time. The clock took that loose, living time and locked it into a grid of 24 identical slices, the same grid that squeezes your entire day today, from the morning alarm to the last glance at your phone before sleep. So here's the question, and I'd really love to hear your answer. Who actually has more control over their own time? Them, who lived by the sun, or us, who live by the clock. And if you could spend a single day in that world with no hours, no alarm, no notification, do you think you'd feel lost? Or for the first time in a long time, free? If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. There are plenty more where this came from. See you in the next one.